All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're about ready to get started. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Chris Parker. I'm the Director of Population and Global Health at the Georgia Health Policy Center. I am pinch hitting for Dr. Karen Minyard this afternoon, who desperately wanted to be here and couldn't be here. So I'm going to try to channel my best Karen, which isn't good. So thank you so much for being here with us. We're 25 years old. You can go ahead and celebrate, yes. For men, we've just become an adult. The research indicates that the brain isn't fully folded until about that stage of life anyway, and so there's probably some truth there. We wanted to invite you into our celebration today as we kick things off with our external-facing celebration for 25 years. I have a prepared text. If those who know me well know I don't do prepared texts well. I tend to speak from my heart. And so to the extent that I'm going to be able to kick things off from my heart and from the prepared text, I'm hoping to be successful. So we're pleased to host this series as part of our anniversary. It'll examine the root causes of poor health, poverty, economic inequality, racism, and the current manifestation of these health disparities: childhood obesity, children's behavioral health, and the opioid epidemic. The Georgia Health Policy Center has a 25-year history. I feel like the microphone's cutting out. Is this better? Maybe not, but I'm going to pretend it. We have a 25-year history of creating the right environment to have important conversations and to think systemically about tough problems. We are and have always been a neutral party providing the best information and data, ensuring the right people are in the room and advocating for a way to approach problems and not necessarily a solution. Using a health in all policies perspective, we have worked to address access to care and socioeconomic drivers of health. And so today's event, Confronting Childhood Obesity, 25 Years in Action in Georgia, will kick off our series of 5. I invite you to learn more online by grabbing a postcard that's on the table in the lobby, or probably it's easier just to grab one of the Health Policy Center staff. I'm going to ask my colleagues from the Health Policy Center just to raise your hand so that folks can recognize you. Thank you all for sitting in the back of the room. Could you keep your hands up just a little bit longer so folks can recognize where you are? And so if you have questions at the end of this, please feel free to reach out to my colleagues. Our work in child policy has been an important part of the Health Policy Center since the beginning. And the center aims to improve child outcomes and child and family policies through applied policy analysis, research, and the provision of technical assistance. The center is actively engaged in programs in the areas of school health, childhood obesity, nutrition, and physical activity, child care and early learning program quality standards, children's behavioral health, and children's insurance coverage. We are excited today. Well, we're usually very excited every day, but today we're even more excited to take a deeper look at Georgia's epidemic of childhood challenges and the public-private solutions that have emerged through partnerships and hard work. So our conversation today is going to be about childhood obesity, a space that the Health Policy Center over the last 25 years we've kind of carved out. We are recognized not just locally, but across the country for being able to facilitate conversations in that domain. And later on this afternoon, we will recognize one of our own who's been a pivotal reason for us being so well known in that space. I want to start today by introducing a couple of folks, but I'll start out by introducing Dr. Stephanie Walsh, who is a pediatric bariatrician and medical director of child wellness at the Children's Healthcare of Georgia. She leads their Strong for Life team, which is a multidisciplinary team providing intensive care for obesity and promoting healthy habits, including healthy eating and physical activity in children. Dr. Walsh is going to take us through this afternoon's proceedings to start with. She's going to give us a few remarks. She's going to lead us into the film, and then I will introduce the moderator for a panel this afternoon. My hope is that you will see this as an opportunity to participate. I know when you celebrate any number of years, the usual thinking it is a party. We have that, and I'll say a little bit more about our kind of events for the 25 years. But the party's not today. So if you came prepared for a lot of that, we'll have a little bit of that at the end, and then I'll tell you when the real party is. Today, however, we're going to talk about an issue that I think we all care dearly about. Could you welcome, as she comes, please, to give us opening remarks, Dr. Stephanie Walsh.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us here and the opportunity to be a part of this celebration. It really is wonderful. And I do want to go ahead and start off with a video that Children's put out in 2013. It went viral after that, getting over 15 million views so far. Is it a touch screen? Yeah. There's the mouse. Okay. They said you have to touch it, so.
All right, what do we got?
Just came in. Heart attack. 5'9", 300 pounds, 32 years old.
How the hell does that happen?
Can I get a, Could be developing diabetes. You have to exchange. Oh, yeah.
You're graduating! Watch TV. You won't even have to leave.
You can't do this.
Yes, can I get a...
Yeah, no, deep dish.
You have to make a change. Good job, Jim. You got an A+.
Here are your fries, sweetie. You go.
I still can't believe you give this child French
I know, but it's the only thing that'll make him stop.
Yeah, I should probably sit down now because I don't know that I can say anything more than that video. And while that video does show a lot of the healthy habits and that our children are not engaged in right now, we all know that obesity is really so much more multifactorial. And there are so many more things that go on into the society and the way we feed our children and what's available and safety and everything else. But again, one of the things we do have control over are some of these healthy habits and how best to get our kids to engage in more healthy habits. Not that. Oops. So, as was stated earlier, taking the big word of epidemic, obesity is still an epidemic. You can see all these numbers up here, and I'm going to show you some different breakdowns of those numbers in a minute as well. But basically, this slide says it all, right? Almost 5 million kids aged 10 to 17 are struggling with weight. That number is just so astronomical. And you can look at it as 18.5% of some of the younger kids that are struggling, or that we're 17th in the nation for our kids right here in Georgia. Plenty of work for us to be doing. Again, this is NHANES data, and you can look at the increase in the 2 to 9-year-olds. This is always the group that I have the hardest time with, because I think really if you leave those kids alone, they usually just run around like crazy, right? Like those little ones, it's only if we start putting parameters on them that they actually move less. So again, getting back to some of that nature and some of the normal activities that kids would be engaged in would be a really healthy way to change some of our habits. Here's another way to look at it. Again, this is by state, and Georgia is about 16% for kids aged 10 to 17. And this is pretty recent. This is 2019. Again, really high numbers for kids struggling with weight issues, and more in Georgia. And again, looking at some of the WIC data there, you can see, I don't know how a 3-year-old can be heavy, although we know that they are, because they literally don't stop moving, right? And they don't even particularly like to eat. They all just run around like crazy most of the time if we would just leave them alone. But the reality is that's not how society is right now. And we don't have the ability to get our kids out to play the way that we used to. And this is what I'm most worried about as a pediatrician, right, is that all our kids are getting sicker. So this JAMA Pediatrics article just came out in December and showed that 1 in 5 adolescents and 1 in 4 adults are pre-diabetic and they don't know it. And pre-diabetes, again, the state before full-blown diabetes, is the best place for us to intervene and actually make a difference and be able to turn the tide. Diabetes leads to worsening cardiovascular disease, which we all know is the #1 killer in this country. Again, diabetes is such a key component to that. And then non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which can often lead to cirrhosis. Again, fatty liver used to be something that was just seen in alcoholics, and now we have a whole nother category of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The number of kids with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease has doubled in the last 20 years, and now 11% of adolescents are struggling with this as well. And what's really interesting about this one is really diet is one of the key components and the only way to manage this. There aren't a lot of medications to really improve this. So what is this going to look like in 10 years, right? Here again, some predictions of what it might look like. And according to these folks from the New England Journal of Medicine article, Georgia will have almost 50% of adults struggling with obesity. 50%. 1 in 4 will be struggling with severe obesity. And the same folks that did this prediction also predicted that of all the kids who are alive in 2017, 57% of them will have obesity by the time they're 35. So these are our kids, and then that next set is their kids, right? And then I don't know, did anybody see this in the paper last week, right? Everything about physical activity I'd like to cut out because I really do think it's such an important component for our health. 25% of Georgian adults admit that they're not active. Just say I'm not active. So you can imagine what that number probably actually is based on what people really think they are doing with physical activity, right? So we're very inactive, and this again is a really important area for us to work on. And we know from all the work in FitnessGram that our kids also have decreased aerobic capacity, decreased muscle fitness, and also need to work on their body composition. So I wanted to just sum up some of these stats by one of my favorite quotes: "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." And while Helen Keller gets credit for saying it, Debbie Kibbe gets credit for doing it. Yeah. Yes. So Debbie, this award and recognition is so well deserved. We have really, we're just so pleased to be part of this, and we're so pleased to continue to work with you, and again, working together in the future. And I think it's just wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you, Doctor. And I've seen the stats. I've seen the graphs and maps before, and every time I see it, it's just amazing to me that as much as we're doing, there's still a challenge. And so there's a lot of work that remains to be done. And so I hope Debbie plans to stay in the work for a much longer period of time. I'll have more to say about that shortly. So we're going to go into the speaker series in earnest. I'm going to introduce the moderator and the panelists all at once so that we can move efficiently through the program. Our moderator for the conversation this afternoon is Mr. John Baer from the Atlanta Falcons Youth Foundation. He's a Senior Vice President of Programs at the Arthur M. Black Family Foundation and leads the foundation's program efforts on early childhood development and obesity, and also serves as the co-chair of the Governor's Advisory Council on Childhood Obesity, guiding the Georgia SHAPE initiative. And I'd ask you, sir, to rise and be recognized. Could you welcome John? So in this kind of courtroom kind of setting, I know many of us are a little bit anxious, especially if you have unpaid tickets. I've been subpoenaed. But I'm going to invite John to head to the well. The panelists for this afternoon's conversation are Vanetta Keys of Choices for Kids Atlanta. She is the founder and executive director of the Center Helping Obesity in Children End Successfully. That's Choices in Atlanta. Choices is an obesity prevention organization and resource center that has served over 100,000 children and their families since 2002. Vanetta, I'll ask if you could be recognized and make your way to the well. She's joined by Paula Chrysler of Health Savannah. Paula is the Director of Healthy Living and Community Development for Healthy Savannah, a group we know a lot about. She has worked on policy systems and environmental change over the last 10 years and led a Healthy Savannah grant to reduce childhood obesity in the Savannah and Chatham County community. Invite Paula to join your colleagues. Jim Lidstone is a professor in the School of Health and Human Performance and director of the Center of Health and Social Issues at Georgia College. He also directs Live Healthy Baldwin, a childhood obesity prevention project funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Healthcare Georgia Foundation. A gentleman I know pretty well, and his involvement in the work here in the state. Could you welcome, please, Jim Lidstone. And our final panelist for the afternoon is Zoe Myers of Cook County Family Connection. Zoe is the executive director of Cook County Family Connection, part of the Georgia Family Connection Collaborative. She directs a dynamic collaborative of more than 60 local, regional, and state partners to improve the health and well-being of the community. Could you welcome Zoe to the platform? And if there are no further objections, Your Honor, I will turn things over to you. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is awfully formal, but we'll do our best to bring lightness to the experience. I want to start for a couple of minutes and anchor the group in reality, but quickly move to an imaginary world. So that's going to be more interesting, I think, for the group. And at the end of this, we'll take a few minutes and share our individual and collective thoughts about working with Debbie, because it's because of Debbie we're here today. So based on all of your experience and the information that you got to see on the screen, working, I guess, from a health model, we start, before we do anything, with a diagnosis. So if you were asked to diagnose the state of Georgia childhood obesity, based on what you know and what you've seen, we'll start in any order, but what's your diagnosis? We'll start on the far end.
Okay. Well, I speak about the issue from a rural perspective, of course, coming from deep South Georgia, about 30 miles north of the Florida state line. I can tell you that in those deep southern parts of the state, in the rural areas, we still have a culture where everything is about fried chicken and banana pudding, and there's a lot of cultural issues that we're still working to change, beginning to see progress in those areas. and a lot of poverty issues, of course, food insecurity, and so using a data perspective, if you will, to really look and see where are those critical needs in what areas around our community, and how do we begin to make some changes that make a difference as far as, you know, food access. How do we get healthy foods into these certain neighborhoods and to certain populations? So it's still a work in progress, of course, in a lot of places, especially the rural communities, but at least we're beginning to see that different sectors of the community are embracing the importance of the work.
Do you have a diagnosis for us? Do you?
He's talking to you, I think.
Okay, sure. Okay, all right. So my diagnosis is alarming. The slides were alarming. I had no idea the projection would lead us to a 50% mark. But at the same time, I saw hope with the childhood obesity rates dipping and the teen rates dipping. So I was excited about that. We're all here doing a lot of work, and just, with Debbie helping us along the way has been phenomenal. So I think, for Georgia, I am hopeful. But at the same time, clearly we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're in the operation, we're there at the end of that video right now.
I like alarming but hopeful.
Yeah.
Joe?
Well, first of all, John, I don't see that question anywhere on my list. But that's okay. As alarming as those statistics were, when we started the work in 2010, we were number 2 in childhood obesity. And so, whether we've stood still and others have passed us in the wrong direction, I don't know. But, you have to take some hope with that, as well as what Paula says are the downward trends. In terms of a diagnosis, I guess, I think that you're sort of asking me what the causes are, and I would say it is our easy access to unhealthy, high-density, low-nutritious foods, and the fact that as we built our communities, we have basically engineered physical activity out of our lives. And so it's those, big kind of systems changes, policy changes that we need to continue to do to make it easier for people to make the healthy choice.
Thank you.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I would say, from my perspective, I started Choices 18 years ago. I honestly thought if I fast forwarded out 18 years to today, I would be out of business because there was so much momentum going to end childhood obesity in 2002. And for us to now say there's been just a small dip in the rates, it's not enough for me to see it from a health disparity point of our African American teenagers and Latino teenage girls. So I feel like there's still quite a bit of work to do, and I hope we get there in my lifetime.
I think you're in business for a while. How many of you growing up, somebody taught you the first rule of holes? When in one, stop digging.
Yeah, right.
And so when folks ask me about Georgia and I don't have the data, because we have sort of arrested the year-over-year increase, it's hard to explain to folks, but it is a victory that we may have reached a point where we're stopped digging deeper. If we could claim that victory, which is very hard to arrest those changes, we're in a really deep hole. And I like Jim's diagnosis. It matches what we hear from our partners, that the easiest choices are still the unhealthiest choices, and the built environment and policy structure has taken activity out of our lives. So I'm going to put you on first, Jim, on the flip side. After we diagnose, we treat. So if we put you in charge of the state for a day or a week or whatever time period, what's the intervention? What's the treatment to get us out of this hole?
Well, 96% of our healthcare dollar spending is on treatment and like 4% on prevention. So we really need to turn that on its head. And so, when I think about prevention, I think about the big picture things in public health, what we call the upstream approaches. So instead of, stationing ourselves with a parable near the waterfall to keep people from going over the edge, we walk upstream to find out why they're falling in the river in the first place and try to build those preventive things. So I'm encouraged, when we look around Atlanta and you can see the Beltline trails. Of course, the Silver Comet has been here for a long time. You see communities doing bike trails, emphasizing green space and things like that, and walkable, bikeable areas of a downtown. And I think we need to continue to push for that. And again, to make it easier for people to be physically active and not have to spend all their time in automobiles.
Any other ideas for treatments?
Well, I'll just pick up on where Jim left off there, and I know he's going to agree with me, though, but to Vanetta's point, we're building trails across America, but then gentrification comes in, the price of housing goes up, and we're still doing the worst thing we can do for our low-wealth African-American population. And so that's what in Savannah, that's what we're trying to get ahead of as we try to, we've been able to get a trail section started. We've got a new loop that's in all kinds of documents now called Tied to Town. And but our number one priority with that is to not displace. Gentrification is okay if you don't displace, right? And, but then do wealth building so we can. And you have to do that through there. I mean, it's a lot of policy work, a lot of engagement with a lot of elected officials to move that along. So we do want that healthy choice to be easy, but we want the folks that we're intending it to help to actually for them to be able to stay and it be helpful.
And I think nutrition education is so key to solving the childhood obesity issue. Going back quite a while back, you used to see a lot of commercials on selling food or advertising food. You don't see that many commercials now advertising food, but it's more around the medicine to cure one of the comorbidities to obesity. If there was some sort of campaign where it was just focused on nutrition education, just reading a label of some of the processed foods that our children are eating, it could potentially get us back to more produce. There's still quite a bit of produce available, but we know there's food insecurity going on in some of the other areas. So nutrition education, food is medicine. So that's where I would want to see some prevention funds spent.
And also, I think I would add bringing partners to the table and making them understand their responsibility in the process. We can't do this work by ourselves. We need businesses, we need agencies, we need families, the entire community involved in the process. So bringing them in, which in our little small community with a mobile produce truck, we have retailers that provide that produce for us because they understood that as part of the community, they have some responsibility as well. So I think that's a critical part, is bringing the community partners on board and saying, we need for you to embrace the importance of this and put your resources on the table as well.
So if that sums up where we are, we're in a condition that's alarming but hopeful. We have still a case where the easiest choices are not the healthiest, and we've got policy and structure that has engineered physical activity away from our lives. And as a remedy, we would imagine a shift toward prevention upstream with a heavy emphasis on addressing disparities. That without acknowledging and understanding these disparities in Georgia, we wouldn't get to where we want to be. So if that's our moment in reality, take a breath. Why aren't we there? There has to be some barrier or barriers. And so I'm in a job where most of the time people ask me for money. And so if you could imagine as a thought exercise, you had a one-time infusion in Georgia of $100 million, or you could change any policy you want, but you had to pick one or the other. That would help me understand what the barriers are. Is it money, or do we have policy structure that's running against the outcomes we want? In the real world, it's both, but we're in our imaginary world where we want you to tell if you could only do one of those as person in charge for the day or the week or the year. Anybody got a place they'd start?
I'd hire people. I'd use that money to hire people and put them out in communities, and because people can solve problems, they're really creative. So,
So what barrier would you solve? What problem would you solve with those people?
well,
That's from current state to future state.
okay. Well, everybody says they don't have enough resources, right?
Yeah.
So, what's keeping us from doing the kind of work that we want to do, whether it's building a trail or whether it's starting a program, is a lack of resources. So I would turn those resources into creative people like the folks in this room and turn them loose.
Human capital.
Human capital, absolutely.
The WPA for Georgia childhood obesity. I'm the old guy in the room. Anybody else? Would you take the money or the policy lever, or
I would take the policy action.
what would you do with the policy? What would you topple?
You know, there's a lot, but what we do know, and so this is, several folks in the room know this, that Healthy Savannah as an organization got its start with no money. You know, the resources were the human capital, but it's the people that, without money, and then we did get money, and so we've been able to do more, and now we have more money and we're able to do more. So I'm not disagreeing with Jim, I'm just saying, though, that we got a lot of work done without having somebody give us a pot of gold on the front end. We got a smoke-free air ordinance passed in the city of Savannah. We got the Forsyth Farmers Market set up in Forsyth Park without having to go through City Hall every week. Things like that we were able to accomplish with policy action. So which one would I do? I think for us in Georgia, so Georgia.
Or one plural, you know, like we saw the kid in the video. What's the policy solution there?
All right, so here's my dream, right? My dream policy is that sugar is labeled as a poison and is pulled out of every product in the state.
There's a building down the street.
I know,
that just
I know.
toppled.
Debbie knows this. I've been pushing back against that big building for a long time, and I'm not going to stop.
In our imaginary world, let's take a vote, and they have to live by this. Raise your hand if you want to label sugar as a toxin.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you do not want to label sugar as a toxin. So the Sugar Congress, the Sugar Congress needs more time before we can issue a ruling. Okay. Anything number 2 on your list after making sugar a toxin?
That we would grow and eat all of our food here in the state.
In the state,
In the state, yeah.
not brought over to
No.
the,
Iceberg lettuce from Central
Yeah.
California?
Right, exactly. Apples from Washington. We have some really good food that we could, and then, yes, grow it and eat it.
And then we teach them how to cook it.
Yes.
Okay.
So they wouldn't have to buy their child's meal at the I almost called out a name, but we're going to keep it very generic. But they would not have to buy the dollar meals. They would physically be, my if I had to dream, it would be where you were not allowed to eat out but twice a week. Everything else you had to go to a grocery store, shop on the perimeter, go home and cook it. That would be my dream.
Well, I've got another one, and that's that every kid in our school system would get 60 minutes of physical activity every day.
Yes.
And that if we really want to make a difference, we change the farm bill at the, at the federal level so that they stop subsidizing farmers to grow unhealthy stuff, all of the commodity crops that go into, the livestock and everything else. And we subsidize farmers to grow healthy food as opposed to the unhealthy stuff.
Yep.
Anything you want to add to the?
Yes, well, I will add to that. And again, my vision comes from that small, impoverished rural community. But, you can envision a community where, like you've all mentioned, children and their families are growing their own gardens, growing their own produce. I mean, we live in rural areas down there where nobody grows anything anymore, but they also live in rural isolation. They don't have transportation to get to one of the 2 grocery stores that are in the center of the county, so they're living out in isolated areas, as you mentioned, having to buy whatever's available at little dollar stores here and there that's far from healthy. So, we have this vision of a place where there would be parks and playgrounds. Our partnership has built 2 in our county, but we need more for the children that are there, and where families understand they can begin to grow healthy, to sustain themselves, and then changing the policies as well. So money, we'll take money and policy. So you need the money, of course, to make the changes to get things going in the right direction, but then bringing the partners and the decision makers on board, buying into it, so they say, yes, this is valid work and we need to put support behind it.
The reason I think this kind of conversation is critical, and I hope it can go on in other forums, is really represented by the reactions from those of you in the room. When you heard the big ideas and the big dreams, you clapped, right? That energized you. And so much of what we have in this deep hole is well-intended work on the margins. And the thought exercise of untethering ourselves from what is happening today, because we know today predicts tomorrow, there's a sort of feels like a normalcy, but we have to imagine things that don't seem possible today, crazy big ideas, or what end up changing the world. Without mentioning, you could point to any one of a number of things that are happening today that if I told you 5 years ago were going to happen in this country, you would have laughed me out of the room. So the folks working on this issue, the childhood obesity core in Georgia, needs to make big asks, needs to be bold, and really fulfill these dreams. I've got a slide, I didn't think about bringing it, that is apt for this month and the week we've just been through. That is the iconic photo of Dr. King at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. And I have a ... on the slide and say, okay, everybody finish the sentence with me. And I have a, and as everybody says, I have a dream. I click it and my slide says metric. And nobody says I have a metric and gets the world riled up. So I'm sorry, Debbie. We've got to have the dream and then grind a way to get there. And as we said, let's not think about reality. Okay, that gave permission and some liberty to say, well, why don't we, whether it is labeling sugar as a toxin, it's sad that the dream is an hour of physical activity a day. But those are the things that in my role as a foundation leader, I encourage. I keep the co-chair of Georgia Shape Advisory Council on my resume because that means the council hasn't gone away. That's my dream, is that we meet again. And we're working with the new administration and they seem supportive. And if we do meet and we keep Georgia Shape alive, it'll be three different administrations, which is something to celebrate in Georgia. So I'm going to turn it over to the room now. You have a permission, and you can explain whether your question is about reality, or if you want to hear something else, but we want to hear from you. We've got every corner of Georgia represented here, and we'll make up a wonderful answer if we don't have a real answer. Abby is here and knows that I will answer the question with something.
Maybe we should circulate the questions that we were supposed to answer.
Here's one in the back.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm Jane Branscombe. My question is, could y'all describe any big successes that you would point to, whether they were within Georgia or around the country, something that you think does give hope or exemplifies progress?
I have one. It's not anything we've done, so I'm happy to share it without making the foundation part of the story. The latest Robert Wood Johnson report that came out and that showed some of the data showed that there's a substantial improvement over time in Georgia children enrolled in the WIC program. And when we see these scalable programs having a positive effect, for us, that's a case where we don't need to make a U-turn or a left turn. Something's actually working. Let's hit the gas. So I'd love to hear other examples, but we, for some years, have been interested in, we focused a lot on SNAP, and maybe too much at some point, and probably underutilized as an investor how we can make sure that every child that's eligible for WIC is participating. But I'd love to hear if there are other victories you've seen. Can be small and community-based or can be statewide.
Okay, well, I'll jump in there and tell you that, again, mine is for everything I focus on is collaborative, so you hear that all the time. But we are a Family Connection Collaborative, and we're also one of the 11 rural communities funded through the Two Georgias initiative from Healthcare Georgia Foundation. So everything we do is about a partnership process. But in small rural communities like where I'm from, to have 60 diverse partners, and those are partners from all different sectors, different backgrounds and professions and perspectives, and to bring those folks together and have them buy in to the changes that are needed in the community and to really take that to heart. And then they go out and they start building parks and playgrounds and starting cooking classes at the Boys and Girls Clubs and creating produce markets that deliver to children in low-income neighborhoods. I think, that's about as successful as you get to share that message and passion so that other people take it on as their project and their vision.
And for us, it really has been, so Healthy Savannah's been around almost 13 years now, but it is, so we have just been building success upon success, and Healthcare Georgia Foundation was a critical part of that because that was our first true resource, and that's then turned into more resources. And currently we're a year and a half into a REACH grant, Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health, from the CDC, so along with two other Georgia communities. So that has been really cool. But one of our activities for year one for the REACH grant was to redo the zoning ordinance for the entire city of Savannah. And as everyone knows, land use and what you can do with land really dictates so much of how healthy we're going to be. And so it means whether there are sidewalks, if there's connectivity, if there are grocery stores, are there, what is going on. And so for a long time, those of you that have visited Savannah know that we've got a beautiful city, but we do a lot for our visitors and not so much for the rest of our community. So this zoning ordinance is really an opportunity to kind of take that control back of, not so many hotels going up, and providing an opportunity to increase sidewalks in our neighborhoods, increase density in our neighborhoods, that we have corner stores, we have grocery stores, we have services, we build a stronger social fabric within the community. So for us, that new zoning ordinance that had the, last time it had been revised, that was at the Metropolitan Planning Commission was in 1967, I believe, and it was just written for auto-centric everything and business everything. And so that happened this past summer, and that was just huge. It was just huge. We've still got some refinements to do. But again, underscoring what Zoe said, nothing happens without collaborative work. And that's where it happens across all those sectors, in the community. So maintaining those stakeholders and strengthening those relationships has been the key to that success.
Yeah, and I could talk about this for days, but we've been working since 2011 in an underserved community in Milledgeville called Harrisburg, and some of you have been there and visited there. But it all started when a couple of us were at a Georgia Organics conference, and we heard about this grant from the Knight Foundation, and some people in that community had asked for a community garden, and so we thought, well, let's throw together a grant proposal and see if we can't, build a community garden and a walking trail for them. And it was only $13,350, I think. And so we built the community garden and the walking trail, and then all of a sudden, lots of partners started to come to the table. There's a regular Tuesday meeting that's been going on since, since 2011. And those folks meet every Tuesday. And initially, it was all about the garden and gardening and learning how to garden. But it's become a community development sort of a meeting. And all these partners come to the table. They want to help, whether it's churches, businesses, city and county government. It's just been amazing to see the amount of resources that people have poured into this community, which was once lost, right? And they started to see it kind of rise from the ashes and wanted to pitch in and help. And so I don't know of too many other models, and Omara here is going to be kind of telling the story about that in the form of a paper that we hope to publish. But it's just a great model that we want to take on the road to other areas of Baldwin County and see what we can do there as well. So.
Well, 2019 was a great year for us. We were 17 years old, and in our name, Center Helping Obesity in Children, that finally came to life for us. We opened up our first community teaching kitchen, which is literally like 5 minutes from here. So we now have that space and that hub to teach families how to cook, but also build on a collaboration, as Zoe mentioned, to bring a lot of our partners together. One of the big partners that we have been working with now for the last year is the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Now that we have a location of our own in partnership with First Congregational Church, we hosted this past Saturday our first mobile food pantry, which was literally where they deliver all fresh produce. So if you could imagine 10,000 pounds of fresh produce that we had 80 volunteers that backed up, and individuals pulled up in their cards, and we gave them fresh produce. But the cool thing about having a kitchen and a chef, you can now give them little samples. An eggplant, they were like, eggplant? Yes, here's what you do with an eggplant. And of course, we had more carrots than you could imagine. So plenty of recipes to go out with the food for the carrots. But it's just a great opportunity for us now to finally be a center, and our focus is nutrition education. So we do want to bring the family back to the table. We do want to, just to see a 5-year-old feeling comfortable in the kitchen with mom cooking. The 8-9-year-olds are now coming home from school, and mom is in the kitchen. They're saying, "Can I help you cook, mom?" So if we can work on that life skill of these young kids now, it might even put a dent in childhood obesity when they're now 25 and parents. So we'll see.
So if we assume that this group's going to reconvene a year from now, and you want to send this group forward with your challenge or hope or a call to action, what's the one thing you would say?
Start cooking.
All right, start cooking, make your list.
I would say, seek out partners, because as these folks have said, you can't do it alone. Start building a coalition around something that we all care about, and that's children's health, and do what you can, where you can, with what you have, right?
Yes, and lead by example.
Very true.
Nice.
Right, and of course, Jim took part of my line there, but yeah, building those partnerships, getting people involved and helping them to feel that the dream and vision belongs to them as well. And also, I think because I'm a data nerd, I'll throw in also looking at, if we know that something needs to be changed in our community, and we want to know where it should be changed, for whom it should be changed, we have to know first what the actual local data is in our communities so that we're not headed in the wrong direction. So beginning to really understand your neighborhoods, your census tracts, your communities, and doing what makes the most sense and creates the most positive change on the local, smaller levels.
Thank you. I want each of you to have a chance to say something about Debbie, if you like. The thing I'll offer is, and a lot of you folks in the room would fit this same category, but Debbie does more without seeking any credit than almost anybody you could ever meet. And I mean that in the very specific, literal sense of how many of us, I know I would be one, are preparing for a board meeting and, oh shit, I got to call Debbie because I need X. And it could be, you mentioned an article in a journal 3 years ago that was oh yeah, I've got it. And so the encyclopedic mastery of the knowledge and the generosity are such a combination that we're grateful for every chance to work with you. Any of you may have your own experiences. I'd love for you to close the program.
I would love to say thank you so much, Debbie. She has been an advisor for Choices. I mean, I want to say maybe since 2004, the GPAN days, and she served as an advisory member for us to help us get this kitchen finished. So thank you ever so much for being that vast wealth of knowledge and sharing. Every time I would call and need advice, you would always give it. So thank you, thank you.
Well, I first met Debbie when the news came out that we'd been awarded the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant, and she found out about it and sought me out at a conference and invited me to lunch, and you were with Ilse at the time, I think, and pitching the Take 10 program. And she at that time she just was full of knowledge, full of energy, and really an advocate for policy and for children's health and for physical activity, and that hasn't waned in the 10 plus years that I've known her, and she's just been a great friend and a great advocate for kids' health in Georgia, and just love you.
So, yes, Debbie's my friend and colleague, and I'm honored to be here while we're honoring you. Very, very special. I wouldn't be here if literally you hadn't called me one day in Savannah. I don't know I don't even know how we met. Jim's got a lunch, I'm not sure, but anyway. And I think that the other thing that I alluded to this earlier, without money, you can do a lot of things. And I kind of talk about that with the word passion. And that's what Debbie has, is passion. Get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. It is indeed an honor to be here. And we've been friends and partners with Debbie through Robert Wood Johnson and the Childhood Obesity Prevention Project, and the relationship continues now, which I think is remarkable. And you are tremendously inspiring, an energizer bunny, I would say. I've seen Debbie in meetings on her computer taking notes 90 miles an hour while writing things and figuring things in her head, and you're such an inspiration to so many of us, and we love you and we're honored for you.
Thanks to the panel.
Could you join me in thanking the panel and the moderator one more time? So it's quite clear to me, if you weren't sure where you were, that you're at the Debbie Kibbe party, which we don't apologize for as we kick off this year of celebrating our 25 years. It feels like honoring one of our own. Using the speaker panel to do this was perfectly the right thing, given that Debbie is herself just 25 years of age. So we get to the place where we actually literally have an opportunity to honor her. And just before inviting Julie to come forward to make the presentation, I just wanted to say a few words. Debbie's a part of our population global health team. As far as the organizational chart goes, I am the guy who she reports to. But I can tell you that when Debbie joined the center, in fact, the first time I met her, I was in front of the room at a state nutrition and physical activity planning event. And because she's on like every advisory board throughout the state that has anything to do with nutrition and physical activity, she was in the room. And I had one of these kind of opening activities where you say, hey, tell us your name and like where you see yourself in 3 years. And it went around, and most people, I forgot what they said. That's usually what happens. I get to Debbie, and she says she saw herself working with us. And I thought, maybe I didn't hear her right. Because in my mind, I'd heard of Debbie Kibbe, the Debbie Kibbe. And for her to want to be a part of the Health Policy Center's operations just kind of floored me. And so when things started happening and suddenly Debbie's going to be here and she's going to be creating this portfolio, and it's like, all right, so who's going to be Debbie's supervisor? And I was like, I don't know half of the stuff around nutrition and physical activity. And it turned out that I was the guy who was going to supervise. And I'm like, but I don't know half as much as Debbie knows when it comes to this matter. And I dare say that there's nobody in the country who knows half as much as Debbie knows on this topic. It is indeed a privilege for Debbie to be part of the group that I'm a part of. We've spent many times at office talking things that can't be said here. When it comes to policy and how hard it is, how difficult it is to make the change that you want to see happen. We've spent times talking about volleyball and baseball and Frank. We can talk after Frank. So my association has been both professional and I count her as a good friend. I wanted to just share a few words that come to mind when I think of Debbie. Some of them you've actually heard, and I think of them as yin and yang, and sometimes just yin and yin. I think she's all-knowing, as I've said before, yet at the same time, all-listening. She has an ability to bring all that she knows to the forefront of a conversation, but she also has the ability to be in a room almost without anyone knowing, just listening and taking things in. I think she's both passionate and compassionate. You've heard about the tenacity that she has with this specific issue. I've seen Debbie almost like just change colors when she's getting like, oh, you don't get it. And yet at the same time, I think for those of us in the office, to a man or a woman, all of us think that she's the person, if there's a challenge, if there's something wrong, if we can talk to someone and know that when we talk to that person, it will go nowhere and she'll understand it, it's in fact Debbie Kibbe. And there's some of you in this room who are thankful that Debbie's a part of the office. I think she's an initiator, and yet at the same time, she's a collaborator. Debbie and I have had conversations about when Debbie's preparing for a meeting, 7:30 at night, I'm like, okay, I think the cleaning people have left. Debbie's still at office, she's printing documents, she gets the little trolley stuff and she packs all this stuff on top of it. Invariably, most of it can't hold in her car, but she's going to try and fit it in there anyway. She can make a meeting happen by her own self. And yet at the same time, I regard her as one of the prized team members. We work together in such an efficient way. She volunteers for anything and everything, even though she has the knowledge that she has. And then the last thing I'd say there about her is that she's frank and at the same time faithful. So she will tell you something as she sees it, as she believes it to be. But when she's locked in your corner, in your camp, she's locked in. And so Debbie, I just want to say on behalf of both the Health Policy Center and the Population and Global Health team, we are tremendously proud of who you are, first and foremost, and then your accomplishments over these past 25 years. Could you please give it up for Debbie Kibbe? So we know I was joking about 25 years. It's been almost 2 decades that you've been exploring how to prevent and manage childhood obesity and support physical activity and nutrition in schools, healthcare communities, and faith settings. You've actively been involved in providing technical assistance and evaluation for Georgia SHAPE, and I looked around the room and I see a few folks that I know from that realm. The statewide Childhood Obesity Initiative, conducting community health needs assessments, providing evaluation for federally funded projects in communities and schools focused on chronic disease prevention, as well as physical activity and nutrition and behavior. Our boss couldn't be here today, and it really tore her to the core. I think she had a conversation with you. You guys went out and had a meal together. But even though she couldn't be here in person, she wanted to be here in person. And so I think we have a video clip.
please join me in congratulating Debbie Kibbe, who is being presented the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition Lifetime Achievement Award. Congratulations, Debbie Kibbe.
Yeah, it feels like I'm at one of these award stuff, and yeah, that was really cool, Debbie, to see all that. I didn't realize we had all those pictures. Thank you, Frank. So, as you heard, Debbie was both nominated for and then kind of won. She's one of 5 President Council awards. And here this afternoon to make the award is Julie Terr, Chief Development and Public Affairs Officer at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and President Council Board Member, and to present the President Council on Sport, Fitness, and Nutrition's Lifetime Achievement Award to Debbie Kibbe, our own special little overachiever. If you could welcome Julie as she comes, please.
Thank you, and Debbie, congratulations again, and thank you for the honor of being able to be a small part of honoring you and your incredible achievements. I was just saying to Missy Dugan, my colleague at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, just listening to our panel and seeing all that you've done, and we work tirelessly and are committed to advocating for our youth and helping a healthier generation that has the life skills and the career skills that they need to be successful and to have a great future. And so I'm in awe of what you all do, and Debbie, you're an inspiration. And so every time we have a tough day and say we can't or it's impossible, I'm going to remember all the things that you made happen. So thank you for everything you've done. So as I said, I'm here today for the most important reason is to be a part of honoring Debbie with this prestigious award, the President's Council for Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition's Lifetime Achievement Award. And also, I'll share a bit about the work that the President's Council does. I'm here today in that capacity. As you heard, I'm the Chief Development and Public Affairs Officer for Boys and Girls Clubs of America, but today I'm here in the capacity as a member of the President's Council. And the council was created actually in 1956 by President Dwight Eisenhower. And for more than 6 decades, under 12 presidents now, the council's brought together celebrities, athletes, and experts to motivate people of all ages, backgrounds, and ability to strive to lead healthy lifestyles. And over the past few decades, the council has really been charged with finding ways to reduce obesity amongst our youth. And most recently, we focused on identifying ways to increase physical activity. And as many of you know, only 20% of adolescents meet the recommendations of the 2018 physical activity guidelines for Americans of getting at least 60 minutes to moderate to vigorous physical activity each day. And I know that was one of the dream visions here that was laid out. And only 54% of youth in our nation participated in a sports team in 2017. So the administration determined that this data suggested there was a clear opportunity to support youth getting more physical activity through increasing participation in sports. So in February of 2018, President Trump issued Executive Order 13824, which tasked the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services with developing a first-of-its-kind national youth sports strategy, and tasked the council specifically with expanding opportunities at the national, state, and local levels for participation. And I should share that I sit on this council under the leadership of 3 really incredible co-chairs: Georgia's own Herschel Walker, Mariano Rivera, and Olympic volleyball player Misty May Trainer, as well as many other incredible athletes and celebrities and thought leaders. Dr. Oz serves on the council as well. And so you may be wondering why this administration chose to specifically promote sports participation. And the answer can be found in numerous reasons, and many of which this room is incredibly familiar with, certainly. But in addition to providing the benefits of physical activity, sports, we know, also provides opportunities for youth to experience the connection between effort and success, may enhance their academic, economic, social, and health prospects, And additional benefits include higher levels of self-esteem and confidence in their abilities, reduced risk of suicide and suicidal thoughts and tendencies, improved life skills such as goal setting, time management, and work ethic, opportunities to develop social and interpersonal skills such as teamwork, leadership, and relationship building, improved concentration, memory, school attendance, and ultimately academic performance. So with these clear advantages in mind, this past September, the Department of Health and Human Services released the National Youth Sports Strategy. And this document provides policymakers and key decision makers in youth sports programming with actionable strategies to increase awareness of the benefits of participation in sports, actually increase participation and access to sports, monitor and evaluate youth sports participation, and recruit and engage volunteers in youth sports programming. And one of the key messages from this strategy that I wanted to ensure I shared with everyone this afternoon, and you all know this, is that all of us have a role in making this possible for our nation's young people. You all are policymakers, health professionals, community leaders and organizers, and parents. And if collectively we could mobilize together to promote sports play and help ensure access to it, more access to it in all of our communities, we can be successful in placing our youth on a path to living healthier lives. And to be successful, we must also address the challenge that youth have, as I spoke about, to equal access to the opportunity to play sports. Only 58% of youth ages 6 to 17 participated in sports in 2017. And the numbers are lower for girls, racial and ethnic minorities, youth from households of low socioeconomic status, and youth with disability. Similarly, economically distressed communities plagued by high levels of poverty, failing schools, job scarcity, unsafe neighborhoods, and lack of capital may also experience some of the lowest rates of youth sports participation. And in communities with limited access to safe, accessible modes of transportation, interested youth may be unable to participate in available sports programming. So I encourage each of us here today, in the spirit of Debbie Kibbe and all she's accomplished, to come together to double down on what our organizations and each of us as individuals and as leaders in our respective organizations can do to reduce these disparities to help our most vulnerable youth become active and healthier. What changes in policy, physical environment, and social environment are needed to promote sports, and how can we collectively address them? And as each of you know, and as Debbie exemplifies, it's only together here in Georgia and in communities and states across this country that we can create a culture in which sports are safe, fun, inclusive, developmentally appropriate, and accessible for all American youth. So to learn more about the National Youth Sports Strategy, you can visit our website at www.health.gov. And now I'd like to transition to the honor of the day and get back to celebrating you, Debbie, specifically in your accomplishments for the indelible mark that you've made in the field of physical activity promotion. Since 2007, the President's Council awards up to 5 distinguished individuals with the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, the Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor is based upon the span and scope of an individual's career, the estimated number of lives they have touched and impacted, and the impact of their legacy, so how their work will carry forward and continue on. And without question, there are few individuals who are more qualified or even as qualified for this award than Debbie Kibbe. And as you all know in this room, Debbie has dedicated over 20 years of her career to the sustained advancement and promotion of physical activity, fitness, and nutrition for our nation's children. Her commitment and contributions to the discipline are the reasons that she was selected by the Council from a field of highly accomplished nominees, and we're very proud to recognize her as a President's Council Lifetime Achievement Awardee this afternoon. Debbie's leadership in the promotion of physical activity is reflected in her work as a senior research associate here, certainly at the Georgia Health Policy Center, and past work with the nationally recognized Georgia SHAPE initiative, whose work led to the passing of the Georgia Student Health and Physical Education Act, requiring annual fitness testing in schools and helping Georgia improve their national rank for prevalence of childhood obesity. And as we celebrated also her development of Take 10, classroom-based physical activity program to get kids moving without taking away from their academic learning time was another accomplishment that stood out to the council. And also your instrumental role in the development of Get Healthy Together to help reduce childhood obesity in community-based WIC programs. Debbie, as I think you all know, is the former director of the Physical Activity and Nutrition Program for the International Life Sciences Institute Research Foundation. And as some of you actually just learned, but I was supposed to be able to let you in on the secret in case you didn't know, was the assistant volleyball competition manager for the 1996 Olympic and Paralympic Games in Atlanta. And finally, a key contributor that she was to the Education Subcommittee for the Second National Physical Activities Guidelines for Americans Implementation Plan Initiative also stood out to the council. So it's for this impressive body of work and the tireless work that you continue to do each day. Please stand and join me in congratulating Debbie Kibbe for winning the 2019 Lifetime Achievement Award. So I do just need to show Debbie very quickly. There is a lovely crystal pyramid that is in transit from Washington, D.C. So this will be arriving for you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Wow. A little embarrassed, a little humbled, emotional. But you're at a childhood obesity event. And you've been sitting for more than an hour. You need to stand. Please stand. So I'm going to ask you to reach high. Reach low. Reach out. Clasp your hands behind your back. Stretch a little bit. Take one deep breath. If Christy Kay's in the room, she's glad we're not doing opposites in action. Exhale. Have a seat. Thank you. So, just over 20 years ago, in May of 1999, Childhood Obesity Partnerships for Research and Prevention was hosted right here in Atlanta. It was one of my first projects at the ILSI Center for Health Promotion, and I helped organize it with CDC and NIH and the Georgia Health Foundation and Emory and the American Cancer Society. Little did I know that this topic would become my passion. Georgia has accomplished so much in the past 25 years. Many of you in the room have been part of that success and could be standing here today as well. I want to talk about some of those successes and some of our existing challenges, but paint a picture for the future. First, the good news, as Dr. Bear has already shared. We're not getting worse. We are not some of those other unnamed southeastern states to our left and south and right. We're actually doing pretty good. We have the percent of children in the healthy zone for body mass index has remained stable, and in some groups has even gone down. In 2012, when former Governor Nathan Deal chose childhood obesity as one of his top priorities, it was game-changing for us. He brought to the forefront the Georgia Department of Public Health, and we established a statewide network and a 10-year plan of action. More than 120 partners have remained engaged in this effort over the last 7 years to make a difference in physical activity, nutrition behaviors, obesity treatment, and to engage all systems serving children and youth. One number I hope you'll remember today is 1 million. Every day, Georgia's school nutrition program serves more than 1 million lunches to our children. Every day. And every year, 1 million children are assessed annually for fitness, for body mass index. Georgia's fitness assessment process, in fact, has been honored as the gold standard in the United States. And without this data from school nutrition and from physical educators, we wouldn't know where we've been and where we can go. So thank you to the school nutrition professionals and the physical educators in the room and across our state who help us tell the story of where we can go. Now, some challenges. Some of you might say I'm about to be Debbie Downer. I've been called that before. But I want this audience, like me, who's passionate about this topic or who is at least interested in this topic, or maybe you were forced to be here because you're part of the Health Policy Center, and I appreciate that too. But I want to talk about some challenges. 300,000 youth have obesity in Georgia. If we add in those children and youth who are overweight, another 15%, the number of youth impacted by excess weight exceeds 550,000 children. There is no other childhood condition that comes close to impacting so many children and youth. Not cancer, not autism, not any condition. In fact, if we were going to address obesity, many of those other conditions might be diminished. According to the evidence, these children are unlikely to grow out of it. In fact, 80% of those kids will not grow out of it. So when 1/3 of children are impacted by a condition that will impact their quality of life and our state's economic viability, state and system policies are critical. The second challenge. According to the 2009 SHAPE Act, only students in physical education are assessed annually for fitness. That means there are 600,000 students that we don't have data on, who are not included in our state's prevalence numbers. This is a miss. Challenge number 3, and probably the most important. Addressing disparities is a critical need. Vanetta, Paula, Jim, Zoe, John have stated how important this is and how important the partnerships are. Rural versus urban, north versus south, girls versus boys. 2 disparities stand out for me. Hispanic and Black youth experience much higher rates of obesity than our white and Asian youth. In some cases, almost double. And while obesity prevalence is similar in girls and boys, when it comes to aerobic capacity, a measure of heart health, far fewer middle and high school girls are in the healthy fitness zone for aerobic capacity. We need action for those middle school and high school girls. Years ago, CDC released a story, and they said in the year 2000, 1 in 3 children will have diabetes in their lifetime. But when you actually got into the numbers of that, buried in that story, 53% of Hispanic girls and 49% of Black girls would likely become diabetic who were born in the year 2000. Those women as leaders in their communities. These girls are now 20 years old. They live here in Georgia. They need our help right now. Enough of that. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer anymore. Let's talk about where we're going. Georgia is one of the few states that have documented a decrease in early childhood obesity prevalence. Many state agencies and organizations, several of whom are in the room today, are working to engage early education centers, WIC, Head Start, families and parents to employ best practices in breastfeeding, nutrition education, physical activity integration, gross and fine motor skill development, screen time, gardening, cooking. When we do it early, when that 0 to 5 age group gets those skills, those life skills, prevention happens. When helping children develop confidence and competence and those skills to be healthy, we'll engage them in a lifelong health experience. We will engage them in a journey to health, and it's happening here. It's working. So many organizations, Health Empower, Strong for Life, the Oregon Wise Guys, Michelle and I started when we were 10. Georgia Organics, the Dairy Alliance, Atlanta Community Food Bank, Georgia SHAPE, Georgia Department of Education, Safe Routes to Schools. So many of us are coming together in a united front. Evidence-based models that touch a large population are key. If you were going to ask me, I have a dream. My dream is that we will no longer be doing 1 year, one-off interventions. We will come forth with a strategy that touches the majority of children for multiple years and gets them back into balance. Evidence-based models that are a mile deep and an inch wide, as CDC said, not digging our hole deeper though, right, John? Power Up for 30 is one example. More than 880 elementary schools signed on to integrate 30 minutes of physical activity into the school day over a 3-year period. That's 68% of Georgia's elementary kids were impacted by Power Up for 30. That 30 minutes is sufficient to bring many of our K-5 students in what is called energy balance. Just 30 minutes a day. Every system, I wish, could adopt that strategy, including our employers. Finally, well, not really finally. Finally, in terms of where we've had some huge hope. More than $60 million from public and private sources have been invested in childhood obesity-related efforts over the past 20 years. It started with a philanthropic collaborative for a healthy Georgia. Many of you in the room were part of that first effort looking at youth fitness. And in addition to state agencies and their programs such as SNAP Ed and WIC, foundations such as Healthcare Georgia Foundation, thank you, Gary, John at the Atlanta Falcons Youth Foundation, Kaiser Permanente, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Tanner Health System, and the national organizations, Boys and Girls Clubs, the YMCA. We've been leading the nation in some of our work in investing in childhood obesity. We need to continue that investment. Smoking took 40 years. Our children don't have 40 years. So, 3 thoughts. We need to be role models. Novelist James Baldwin said, "Children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them." Let's be the state that works really strategically over the next 10 years to be a role model for reducing disparities and working to ensure that both adult and youth obesity decline. And I'll add, we have evidence that family meals 3 to 6 times a week and family physical activity makes a difference. I hope you'll embrace those 2 strategies for your families. The impact of regular, moderate to vigorous physical activity and healthy nutrition on normal growth and development, on learning, on lifelong health is well documented at this point. Who benefits the most? Evidence suggests the greatest education and health benefits will be to our poor, our most vulnerable populations. Let's be the one state in the southeastern United States that upholds rigorous school nutrition standards, that maintains or increases our opportunities for physical education and recess. We owe it to Georgia's children to make high-quality food and physical activity a priority in every system, every year. I'm almost done. Technology. Screens and social media, they're here to stay. A recent analysis of 25 years of survey data from 1991 to 2016 on more than 1 million 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students revealed a sudden decrease in psychological well-being in teens starting in 2012. More time on electronic communication and screens resulted in lower self-esteem, lower life satisfaction, less happiness. Let's figure out how to either get our kids to use technology less, or more realistically, to use it strategically to promote health and happiness. I have a dream. I also have a metric, but I have a dream too. That every child in Georgia will receive an opportunity to be active and to eat healthy every day, regardless of their socioeconomic status, rural, urban, north, south, boy, girl. A heartfelt thank you to my husband for his love and patience over 30 years. You've put up with a lot. To my family, my sister Donna's here today. I probably learned my love of physical activity from running from my 5 older siblings, but they were great role models. Thanks to my mentors, Alex Malaspina, Rick Trowbridge, and Jim Stewart, who guided me on this path to work in childhood obesity, and to the panelists today who shared their story. The work they're doing all over our state is important. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for taking the time to be here, for partnering, for having to listen to the Debbie Kibbe story. It's a little embarrassing, but for working every day to help Georgia's children be healthy. We are truly a village in the childhood obesity arena in our state, one that is committed to making a difference. Mark Twain said it best, children are living messages we send to a time and place we will never see. Let's keep working, village, for another 25 years to ensure that Georgia's children experience a healthy and productive future. Thank you very much for coming.
Wow, I hope we recorded that. I've heard a lot of thanks after awards, but that was full. I sat there thinking, maybe Debbie was just named Secretary of DHHS, or State of Obesity in our state address. So I have a dream. I saw a dream. And I've always dreamed that I was in this kind of setting, there was a judge behind me, and maybe, a jury of my peers, and I know I have a couple lawyers inside the room, and so, but I've always wanted to kind of bring something before the House or before the council. So this afternoon, to conclude things, I have a resolution. I'm not sure how you start resolutions, but I'm just going to start. Whereas the problem of childhood obesity is a grave one throughout the state of Georgia, and indeed the nation, and whereas many have been engaged in the effort to do battle against this scourge and the challenges posed to well-being, whereas Debbie Kibbe has been a fervent and skilled officer and foot soldier in that army, possessing knowledge beyond her youthful years. Whereas Debbie has been able to bring change at local, state, national, and international areas, and screamed for such change whenever and wherever she could to whomsoever would listen. Whereas Debbie has had to hold her tongue on many occasions. Scream, are you kidding me? Sometimes watching as evidence-based policy, systems, and environmental approaches to solving the challenge be delayed. Whereas for more than 2 decades, Debbie has not wavered in this fight, and though bloodied and dazed, she has unreservedly held on to the belief that our children can be healthier, eat better, and move more. Be it resolved that this afternoon, January 23rd, the year 2020, Anno Domini, beginning at 3 p.m., be known forever in history until 5 p.m. as the Debbie Kibbe Afternoon of Honor and Celebration. All in favor? Aye. All against? Hearing none, the resolution passes. So it remains for me just to say that this is the first of our 25 events to celebrate the Health Policy Center's 25 years. It'll be made up of a speak and film series. We started with one this afternoon. We have staff appreciation events, community and service opportunities, co-sponsored events with other partners, and our capstone reception, the kind of party in December of this year. I have been told by our marketing and communications folks that I can't end without telling you about our hashtag. And if you're like me and you're not quite sure what you're supposed to do with that, speak to one of the Health Policy Center marketing and communications folks. So the hashtag is 25for25, and that's F-O-R, not for. Otherwise, it'd be a lot of numbers. So on social media, you can hashtag 25for25, and we invite you all to participate in future events. The kind of schedule, I think, is on our website, which is www.ghpc.gsu.edu/anniversary. And if that's not memorable, just go on the website and look for the anniversary link. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to invite you to share with us Debbie's success as you go outside. There should be some refreshments, and if they're not, hey, let's just pretend there are. No, I'm sure that there are refreshments outside. Could you celebrate as you go out one more time? I'm going to ask you to rise, Debbie, and because I know behind every great woman is a great man, I'm going to ask Frank if he would rise with you, and we celebrate you as we end this first session. Thank you so much. We honor you. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists. These proceedings are officially ended. I don't have a hammer.